Prisons. They are built to house some of the most dangerous people around, and with the amount of trauma, pain and terror experienced behind prison walls, there's no wonder why many of them are ranked as some of the most haunted places in the world. So here we have 5 prisons where the prisoners, even after death, seem to have never left. Starting us off is the Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia. It was opened in 1879 and was a prison until 1995. It was considered to be one of the most violent prisons in America, and its inmates are still said to haunt the place to this day. When the first phase of the prison opened, it had an inmate population of 251 prisoners. Over the years, the prison took a turn for the worst and became incredibly violent. 36 homicides and 94 executions took place in the prison. Suicide and violent punishments also contributed to the death of hundreds of inmates. But due to poor record keeping, the total number of deaths that happened at Moundsville will always remain a mystery. With its violent past, Moundsville Penitentiary is believed to be plagued by what is called residual haunting, which is defined as a replay of tragic events from the past. There are several areas in the prison said to be more haunted than others, such as the chapel, shower cages, the death row area, the sugar shack, and the North Wagon Gate, which is where death row inmates were taken before being executed. One other area known for strange occurrences is the circular entrance gate, which was used to separate arriving inmates from the warden's living quarters. According to reports, the circular cage turns by itself, giving the impression that the spirits of criminals are still arriving at the prison. The 2 most reported ghosts are that of a maintenance man and Arville Adkins. The maintenance man used to live in the basement and is often seen wandering around the bathroom area of this basement. He was brutally beaten and stabbed by inmates as he would report the wrongdoings of prisoners to the guards. Arville Adkins was an inmate who suffered immensely during his execution. He was up on the scaffold when the trapdoor opened prematurely, and he fell through the hole and landed on his head, causing major head damage. Arville Adkins is thought to haunt the gallows area. If there was an award for the most haunted looking prison, the Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia would certainly win, and with the terrifying paranormal stories, it's easily one of the most haunted prisons in the world. Bodmin Jail. Bodmin Jail is a 17th century prison situated on the edge of Bodmin Moor in Cornwall, United Kingdom. It was built in 1779, and during its opening, some very dark things happened at Bodmin. It held over 150 prisoners, and 55 were executed by hanging. One time, 20,000 people gathered to watch the execution of 2 brothers who were convicted for the brutal murder of a local man. As the site was witness to so many deaths, not just from execution, but also due to the terrible living conditions, it's become a very popular place for paranormal researchers, who mainly hope to see the so-called innocent prisoners who were executed that have been reported wandering around the prison. Matthew Weeks, who was convicted of killing 18-year-old Charlotte Diamond on Bodmin Moor, has been witnessed several times, as well as Selena Wedge, who was accused of killing a child. It has been said that Selena will try to grab young children visiting the jail, and also suppresses a feeling upon pregnant women. Another ghost that is said to be seen is that of Anne Jeffries, who roams around the jail. Anne was left to starve to death as she would not admit that she was a witch. It was after 3 months of no food that she died. 3 months is a long time without food, and this further strengthened the thought for the locals that she was indeed a witch. The bar area also has lots of paranormal activity, and it's not just the visitors who witness these things. Staff have said that they always feel like they're being watched, can hear unexplained footsteps, voices, and children screaming from the lower floor cells, as well as having their clothes tugged by an unknown force. Many believe some prisoners are still trapped in their cells because loud bangs and eerie voices can be heard in the empty jail lockups. There is no shortage of paranormal reports at Bodmin Jail, making it easily one of the most terrifying prisons in the world. The Eastern State Penitentiary. The Eastern State Penitentiary is a former American prison in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and during its 42 years as a prison, it gained a reputation for holding its prisoners in total isolation. Inmates were confined to windowless rooms and allowed no contact with any living person for 23 hours a day. Most were driven insane by their minds playing tricks on them due to the lack of human contact. Many of the tortures used on inmates varied from the iron gag like I mentioned in my 5 ghosts caught on camera video to the hole, which was a hole in the ground where inmates who broke the prison rules would spend days and often weeks with no light whatsoever, very little air and barely enough food to survive. Their weak and frail bodies would then be pulled from the hole and placed back in their dark lonely cell. The water bath was another brutal method used if an inmate disobeyed the rules, and it involved being dunked in a bath of icy cold water and then hung from a wall outside all night long. During the winter, there would be a thin layer of ice on the inmate's skin by the morning. The water bath is believed to have caused several deaths during its use, so there's no denying that if any place had the environment to house paranormal activity, the Eastern State Penitentiary would be the perfect fit. The usual apparitions, mysterious footsteps heard, and strange sounds have all been reported here, and one story tells of a locksmith who was called in to remove an old lock from a cell door when an unknown force grabbed him so tightly he could not move. It happened in cell block 4, which is where many of the worst tortures occurred. The locksmith said that he felt a horrible negative energy overpower him. Cell block 4 is where most of the paranormal activity seems to take place. Within the cells of this block, faces have been seen to appear on the walls, and distorted forms will move around the hall. Cell block 6 is where another figure can be seen patrolling the hall, filling those who witness it with dread and immense fear. In cell block 12, a terrifying laugh has been heard on several occasions. The prison is now open to the public, and the workers there have reported that in their time working there, weeping, laughing and eerie whispering can be heard, all of which have no apparent explanation. An interesting thing about the prison is that despite being open to visitors, there are some areas that are closed off to the public. Many ask the question of what is behind the locked doors. Some believe maybe there is some dark history that cannot be released. The Tower of London. The Tower of London is said to be the most haunted prison and one of, if not the, most haunted place in the United Kingdom. It's 900 years old and the history taking place there is incredible. Its original purpose was to act as a royal power base in the City of London, providing a safe place for the royal family in times of civil disruption. But over the years it became a prison, where the prisoners would be trialed, tortured and executed. The Tower of London was a terrifying place to be sent to, and most brought there were either executed or scarred for life. There are thousands of ghost sightings. Thomas A. Becket is said to be one of the first ghosts seen in the tower. When the inner curtain wall was still in construction, Thomas's ghost was said to be unhappy about it and reduced the wall to rubble. The grandfather of Henry III was said to be the reason for Thomas A. Becket's death, so he built a chapel in the tower for the Archbishop. People believe that Becket's ghost was pleased with the construction of the chapel because no further interruptions were reported. Arbella Stewart is one of the castle's most famous ghosts, but the most persistent of all ghosts in the Tower of London is that of Queen Anne Boleyn. She was married to King Henry VIII and beheaded in 1536. Several sightings of Anne Boleyn have been reported. She appears close to the site where she was executed, and many people have reported seeing her headless body walking the tower's corridors. The Bloody Tower is a place in the castle which conjures up grisly images. There is a story of two young princes, Edward V and his brother Richard, who were declared illegitimate by Parliament and sent to the tower. They were often seen playing around happily in the grounds, but suddenly vanished and were never seen again. Two skeletons, believed to be the children's, were unearthed beneath a staircase in the White Tower. The ghosts of the children are often seen wearing nightgowns, clutching each other in terror in the rooms of the castle. They are also heard throughout the tower. Currently, guards secure the Tower of London around the clock, and many have reported having a terrible crushing sensation upon entering the place where King Henry VIII's impressive armour is held. Many guards also have stories of seeing, hearing and feeling the presence of ghosts throughout the Tower of London. All of this makes the Tower of London one haunted place, and it's also one of the most visited places in the UK, not only for its deep history, but due to its terrifying paranormal stories and encounters. Alcatraz. If you have ever heard of Alcatraz, you will know that it was the ultimate American prison. It was first designed as a military prison in the 1800s, but in the early 1900s it was turned into a federal prison, which housed the country's worst criminals, from infamous gangster Al Capone to the insane Sam Richard Shockley, who had the mental equivalency of a 10-year-old child. During its use, Alcatraz was a brutal place of punishment and confinement, offering very few privileges to its inmates. Suicide, murder and insanity were common, and all this adds to why it's regarded as one of America's most haunted places. Sightings of figures in corridors, cell doors slamming, and even the sounds of unknown musical instruments have been witnessed by many of the staff working there. But the current workers there aren't the only ones to have experienced strange things at Alcatraz. During its time as a prison, it was said that almost every guard and official who served there during its opening experienced something out of the ordinary, and many prisoners reported ghostly activity during their stay. From whispering sounds in the middle of the night, floating lights and figures, moaning, and the clanking of chains in cells which were known to be unoccupied. One inmate in D Block was reported to have seen glowing red eyes in the dark and screamed for hours. He was then found dead the following morning with a purple face, bulging eyes, and unidentified strangle marks around his throat. Many wonder though, did he commit suicide or was he killed by someone or something? Alcatraz has and always will be a remarkable place, and the paranormal stories, rumours and legends will continue to terrify us forever. So that's 5 of the most haunted prisons in the world. Thanks for watching and see you next week for another video.